Welcome to PWCI This Week. I'm the Man Conservative Crime Fighter, and today we have the first of a two-part interview with the host of Wrestling Authority Radio, Sean Hubbard. Now, some folks are screaming, "Crimey! Why are you interviewing this guy? He's the scum of the earth! He's a habitual pathological liar!" 3 reasons. 1, there are unresolved problems and unanswered questions. 2, I stood the best chance of getting those answers than anyone else. And 3, to get him on the record on a forum that I control, not him. Also, I am not going to do what the Daily Northwestern student newspaper did 2 weeks ago, issuing apologies to snowflake-type kids for doing real reporting due to butthurt that was caused. I don't expect anyone's opinions to change after this. Folks are dug in. I leave it up to the audience to decide what is truth or fantasy for now. I am expecting a lot of feedback, and I'm open to book a guest for reaction at a later date. So let's begin. Sean Hubbard, thank you for joining me today. You agreed to do a no-holds-barred interview, so anything that I find relevant in this discussion we can cover.
Okay, sounds good.
So let's start with the journal stuff. You sought to become a professional wrestler back in the early 2000s. What got you into the sport?
It all started down here at the Illinois Valley Flamingo Banquet Hall in 2002. Revolution Championship Wrestling, owned by Jay Rebsel, had opened, and Hawk was down at the local comic book store, and I decided that I was going to go down and meet Hawk, and he gave me some free tickets, and that just changed everything. A year later, Wicked Wrestling Alliance approached me about training, and I was only 13, but I said, you know, if this is going to be what I'm going to do, let's go for it, because there's not any reason to hold back from when your dream presents itself. So I decided to train with Wicked, and been doing this 14, no, I lose count. Too many chair shots.
What year did you officially have your first match?
2007.
2007 against whom?
I was in the Battle Royal at my brother Talon's Fighting for the Cure in Sterling, Illinois. I got pulled out of the crowd by Deuce Trey and Eastman, and thrown in the ring, and took some good beatings that night, but had some fun doing it. And a couple months later, Jonas the Giant called me. Him and Freight Train Jonas had opened their own company over in Princeton, and they said, "Come work for us, kid," and rest is history after that.
You were pulled out of the crowd. Was that you said the first official match? You were pulled out of the crowd and thrown in the ring.
Yes.
And bell rang.
It was a battle royal.
Okay.
They threw me in the ring, and they started beat on me, and the locker room cleared out, and the battle royal started, and I didn't think I really knew what I was in for.
Now, you weren't active very long in the ring as you contracted a career-ending medical condition, so you had to shift to other roles.
Yes.
Can you take us through when you learned that you had to stop wrestling and what all you did afterward?
I learned about that, it was actually 3 nights before the RWF's official first event in 2009, September of 2009. It almost killed me, because I had switched roles from wrestling to promoting, and didn't really want to retire from the ring. And it seemed like at the time my career was really starting to take off. I was getting booked a lot, and I think one of the last singles matches I had was 2010. There was no way to come back from anything like that. I'd like to have my one return to the ring to where I can at least go out the way I want to, but if it never happens, it never happens. I focused on managing and announcing and doing the radio show that I started with my brother in 2013, and been focusing on that, and still trying to promote a product in the area that somebody could appreciate, because there's a lot of history here. Matter of fact, I did some history the other day, and wrestling can go back to this area, at least on record that you can find online, dating back to 1953.
Now, at some point you began to promote shows. Well, I have no desire to become any sort of a promoter. Why did you want to become a promoter?
I felt I had more to offer the business than just my body. I had given a lot of different ideas to promoters over the years, and anybody that I worked for, if they'd lend an ear, I'd shoot ideas to try to make their product better as a whole. And I felt that if I couldn't offer my body to the business anymore, maybe I could offer my mind and give something back to the wrestling community the way it's given back to me for all of these years. I knew I had an eye for talent. That was another thing. There were so many guys out there that were so talented, and there weren't a lot of places to work when we opened in 2009. We had a few places here and there, but when we opened, we got a big rush of good talent. I mean, we had guys like Rashi Brown and Kyle O'Reilly and Steve Carino in for us in 2009, and I wouldn't trade my time for anything in the world. Granted, I was 18, I was young, I probably made some mistakes, but that's going to be every new promoter when they get into promoting events for the very first time.
Now, you've developed a relationship with Central Illinois Pro Wrestling Hall of Famer Ed Schumann, which has been a bone of contention with some people, but we'll get to that later.
Okay.
How did this come together?
I met Ed down here in 2004. He Revolution Championship Wrestling had joined the NWA, and Ed was somebody that had an aura about him that he attracted people to him. You wanted to learn from that man. You wanted to ask questions. And when he was here with the RCW and the NWA, I was the kid to go out and get all of his merchandise and wheel it back into the venue, and then at the end of the night wheel it back to his car, and we had a good relationship from there. And when he found out that I was opening my own Fed, he was really keen on wanting to help me and make it something that was going to mean something and not just be another Illinois company. It was actually going to be something that held some merit. Ed and I's relationship was always great. I know there's other people that say that wasn't the case, but a lot of people that say otherwise were not around on those conversations that Ed and I had privately, to where we were making the decisions of what was going to be the end goal for the RWF when we started in 2009 in Ashton.
How many shows did you promote with Tumen?
3.
Now, at some point, there was an issue about how a particular show was funded. That was co-promoted with Tumen. A few individuals who were very close with Tumen insist you were 100% responsible for the funding, and Tumen was just lending his name. And those individuals, I guess, appointed themselves debt collectors, whether or not they had any legal authorization to do so. Why has that been misconstrued and for so long?
Well, the name of the game is, you're in a business, you're trying to make money. When you're a new company, especially in the area we were in, it's hard to make money. We were in a town that only had 1,200 people in it. We did our first show in September of 2009. We drew a little over 100 people. That show cost me $2,500. Ed knew that I took a loss on the first show. He knew we had Carino coming in on the second show, and he volunteered his help. And if you talk to anyone that knew Ed, you'll go back and hear stories about how Ed bought wrestlers' gear and helped guys, with training and all of that, because that's just the type of guy that Ed was. I didn't force Ed Schumann's hand and invest on the second show with Steve Carino. I didn't pull a gun to his head and say, hey, you've got to do this. It was all Ed's volunteering that did it. And his backer and my backer split things right down the middle, 50-50, from money put in to money lost. Matter of fact, at the third event that we did, there was actually a check written to Ed Schumann for the differences of the losses on the second event. And the main culprit behind this whole thing was not there to see that check given to Ed, so he had no idea that this was actually done. And If I really wanted to, I could probably go get a copy of that check somewhere again, but there was money given to Ed at the third event. And my theory is this: why would Ed stick with me through a third NWA show if he didn't see something in me? If he thinks that I took his money and ran, why was that third show still under the NWA banner?
Now, who was the person who reimbursed Tumen?
That was my backer, Steve Eicham.
Now, where is he today? And has he spoken out or come out to defend you on this?
He is still in Ashton, Illinois. It's kind of hard because when things dissolved with the RWF, with him being involved, he kind of got out of it. And as the more chaos started with this main culprit, he really got out of it because he didn't like this individual to start with. When we had him in 2009, he told me I was insane for booking the guy. And the only reason that I booked the main culprit, Joey Eastman, was because Ed wanted it done. Ed said that Eastman had to be there for the Chic angle that we were filming. And with me already having problems with Eastman, I did not want him there. I knew the kind of trouble that he was, and I knew that sooner or later it would rear its ugly head again. But Steve Eicham, he did fund all of the first show. After the second show, there was a third backer on the third show, and Steve has come out and complained about Eastman and tried to put Eastman in the right. I've tried to get a public statement from him, but he's at this point in his life that he doesn't feel that he has to fight over something that happened almost 10 years ago with Joey Eastman, because Joey Eastman wants to hold a grudge.
I guess he claims you owe this debt to Tumen. Have we ever heard of, from any member of the Tumen family, son,
not.
daughter,
We have not.
ex-wife, or widow?
Matter of fact, when I was at Ed's funeral in 2010, I talked to his wife, I talked to his daughter, and they knew the kind of relationship that Ed and I had, and they were very kind. And still to this day, not one member of the Ed Schumann family has contacted me and said, hey, you owe us money, and this is why, and we're going to need this back. And it was just an Eastman thing where when Ed died, Eastman blamed me for Ed not having a headstone, and this has been going on now for almost 10 years, and it's ridiculous. It's the rumor that haunts me because Eastman, for whatever reason, has it out to destroy me the same way he had it out to destroy my brother when he worked for my brother in 2007 in Sterling. He worked there at the show with Cameron Cage, and that aired on the Mat, Nicholas H's show, and they went up to the Chicago studio and dubbed live commentary all over the show airing, and pretty much crapped all over my brother on Chicago syndicated TV, and that's when I knew I really didn't like Eastman.
I guess the self-appointed debt collectors have provided no proof that they've been given any authorization to collect debt. Is that correct?
They have given me no proof. They still to this day, there is no evidence from the Ed Schumann family that they believe that I owe Ed, them, or the funding of Ed or the memory of Ed any money.
And they have not ever tried to file a small claim suit against you?
No, there's never been any court documentation filed. It was just all hearsay based on Eastman and the rest of his buddies that he got to believe it.
Some time ago also there was an event, and I believe, I don't have it written down here, but I'm kind of recalling this from memory. You held some sort of event and where a guy, a short-term WWE wrestler by the name of Mantar was booked on this event.
I have never...
That event where ended up at the end of the night, local PD had to be called in to disperse the angry locker room.
I have never told the full story of this on air or anywhere until today, but honest to God truth, that was a thing that I set in motion trying to rework with Big Daddy Destruction out of the Quad Cities. The original plan was to have it be a cancer benefit with Hacksaw Jim Duggan and have Saturday night out in the Quad Cities and Sunday out in Sterling, Illinois. When we lost Duggan because of Big Daddy being Big Daddy, we moved to bring in Cowboy Bob Orton Jr. and somebody that was playing a Doink the Clown and Kamala Jr. And Mantar. Now, I booked Mantar through JB Payne, and JB Payne had sent me this email that had been doctored up that basically said that Mantar was returning to Raw for the 20th anniversary, which I think was going on at the time. That was false documentation. Mantar never showed up on Raw. The original price was less than what it was after Big Daddy canceled his show the night before, which totally ruined everything else because I had talent booked on both events to try to save money. And when one show fell through, talent decided they were going to try to drive their prices up. And one of those people was Mantar. Mantar called me that week, or maybe even the Friday or Saturday before the Sunday event, and said, hey, I'm going to need more money. And I said, look, I can't do this. I'm not, the original quote for him was $250. I had no problem giving him $250. He had been on TV. He was coming from Nebraska, no problem. When Big Daddy canceled, the rate went up to $550. And I told Mantar that I couldn't do it. And I told him that I'd do the best that I could. And he showed up. I gave him $300 cash. I gave him, I ended up finding out later in the night that his wife won the 50-50 raffle. And that was the night that my backer at the time, along with Big Daddy, had left me $1,000 to pay pretty much $3,000 worth of rentals and talent. And unfortunately, I didn't have the backup myself to be able to make it all work. And that's where that show kind of just fell apart.
Mantar threatened to do damage to my parents' house, car, them, and the animals, as well as me. Me, I wasn't too worried about, but when he threatened my mom and dad is when I called 911. Out of roughly the $1,000 I had, I dispensed it the best I could amongst all the wrestlers that were there in 2012, so everyone left with something. Some left with more than others. Mantar got $300. He wanted me to pay him off and screw over some of the boys completely. Mantar was very troublesome to deal with. There were suspicions that he was doing substances in the parking lot because I did have a couple of fans tell me, say, that they saw him with some kind of white powder. That is not confirmed nor denied. That is just speculation on what I was told that night. Now, everybody jumped aboard the Let's All Support Mantar bandwagon and didn't really know that he was trying to screw some of the boys completely out of pay that jumped on his bandwagon. To me, that's not right. Would I change the way I did things? Yes. Would I change the going through with the show? Maybe. Because the fans there did leave happy, and it was the longer show, but I made sure that the fans that were there did leave with their money's worth.
I kind of should have, in retrograde, I should have canceled my show along with Big Daddy's, but because I had canceled some shows after Ed had passed, I didn't want to get into that pattern of things. And I worked really hard to try to make 2012 work. I really did. We had a lot of good talent on that event. There's not a day that goes by that I don't regret having to stiff all those boys and girls, because a lot of them I had known since I started in this business. I mean, you had Machine on there, who I've known since 2002. You had C-Red, you had William Von Richardson and Trauma, all guys that I grew up working with. And that's why from 2012 till 2016, I didn't run any shows. I attempted to run some here and there that fell through, but I made a promise to myself and a couple other people that I would not attempt this again until I had my own personal funding to do so.
Now, have you been able, after the fact, been able to pay off what was owed to those wrestlers that were booked on that show?
I have never paid it off. There's been a couple that have asked for it over the years. But as a conglomerate, they never came to me and said, hey, we need this money. It's kind of one of these things that happens in the business, and it's not supposed to happen. But this is a wrestling business, and we all know things happen that shouldn't happen. I'm not comparing myself to Ian Rotten, but Ian Rotten is known for sipping a lot of his talent over the years. I believe if you're in the wrestling business and don't have it happen to you at least once, then you're not truly in the business, because I can't tell you how many times I've traveled up and down the roads and gotten to the end of the night and the promoter's like, hey, I've got no money for you. Would I pay people back if you know, the opportunity presented itself? Yes, but at the same time, I'm a forgive and forget person. There were quite a few talents, Diamond Steel being one of them, that came back to work for me even after that 2012 incident had happened, which I appreciate because it's loyalty, and everybody knows that I took care of the talent the best way I could.
Is that the reason why so many people are hostile to you, is because of that 2012 show and so many people that just did not get paid that night?
I think it's a matter of that, and I think it's a matter of all of the rumors that Eastman and his buddies have been able to spread over the years. I think it's a combination of both, because there's still people to this day that would come in and work for me in an instant. There are other people that wouldn't take the booking if you paid them double to take the booking, and that's their prerogative. I do the best I can. I am one of the very few promoters in Illinois that when I run an event, when you walk into my building, you get paid your envelope upon arrival. Not many promotions in Illinois still do this. It's a matter of respect. It's telling the wrestlers, you don't have to chase me down at the end of the night and worry about getting your payday. It's a sign of respect that when you walk in the door from my company, at whatever building we're in, you get your envelope upon arrival. And I've done that since 2016.
It's no secret that you made a number of enemies over the years, and there's a whole host of reasons why you've been deemed a pariah, and some of that is from that 2012 show, and a lot of it has come from your weekly podcast. Why stay in a business that clearly so many don't want you in?
Because if I go out of this without redeeming my name and proving that I can leave a legacy behind, they win. And I'm not one to roll over and get pinned without a kick out. The podcast has created a lot of controversy. It's been going now for 6 years. We've covered some of the biggest controversies that the business has seen in the last 6 years, from Hardcore Road Trip 2, where people got stranded in Canada, to disaster in Dudleyville, to a slew of other things. I don't compare myself to this man because I think I'm as good as him, but on a controversial standpoint, I am as controversial as Jim Cornette when it comes to the wrestling business today. I don't back down from what I've got to say. I'll hear other people's viewpoints, and I'd love to hear them, but when it comes to standing my ground, I stand it, and I stand it firm. And that's why a lot of people don't like me, is because I tend to tell things how it is. Grammy, you've known me for I don't know how long now. I don't back down from a challenge, and I don't back down from telling people what I think. Has it caused me bookings over the years and things of that nature? Yes. But I'd rather have my firm morals, which a lot of people in this business still don't have, than to be the guy that goes yes to everything and everything's hunky-dory and okay.
And that toxic environment, I mean, several bookings you've acquired where you were going to ring announce were canceled because locker room protested and threatened to walk out and if you weren't pulled from the event. It's so bad, it's too risky for you to promote your appearance for it to happen at all. Is this part of the Midwest too toxic for you to be involved in?
I don't think so. I think it's just, everybody's got their opinions on me, and a lot of people that have these opinions have not really sat down and gotten the chance to know me. They go by what they hear on the podcast or what they hear through the grapevine. And, what you hear through the grapevine is one thing, but if you actually sit down and were to get the chance to talk to me and understand my point of base, I think a lot of people would change their tune on me. I'm not saying that everyone would, but I think there would be some people that would change their tune on me. And look, I'm 28 and I'm young and I still have a lot of years to give this business, but I'd rather sit home and do nothing than work for a company that I know is going to be a problem for me to work in, whether it be toxic work environment or drama that's going to ensue from me being there or anything like that. I'm much more comfortable sitting at home and not putting myself into that kind of situation.
So we have to go to June the 1st. Now you had a lot of issues booking this event, and seemingly you had to replace almost the entire roster. Reasons for pullout differed for each wrestler, bigger opportunity, hearing negative things about you, your own conduct as a person, to not having the funds available to pay the bills. You had a statement. You made a statement where you say them pulling out was screwing over the fans.
Yes.
And why?
Because before Dreamwave announced that they were coming back, we had Marche Rocket and Nick Brubaker and Jason Hades booked for a future date, but the June 1st date had some really good talent that we had signed for it to try to make it the biggest event that the area had seen in quite some time, because Powerhouse was gone. You had PWX running and doing their thing, and we all know my thoughts on them. And I felt that it wasn't fair to the fans that had seen this thing advertised since November of 2018, that these guys decided at the last minute, when I've got all the advertisements done, I had you make the TV commercial, I had all the posters printed with their faces on it and everything done and ready to go, and that's when people decided they wanted to pull out. And I said, this is not fair. This is not fair to me. I've got you on all my advertisements, and it's not fair to the fans, because there were fans. We had one hell of a main event side that was going to be Nick Brubaker versus Diamond Steel, and there were a lot of people looking forward to that match. Marche Rocket, I knew C-Red from the time that he worked down here at Wicked. He was high on Marche. Marche was good talent. Had no issues with Marche. I did have an issue with Marche lying about me about where he was going to be on June 1st, because I ended up finding out that he was up at Global Pro Wrestling and posing. So I didn't appreciate being lied to. I didn't appreciate the fans that had bought tickets and made us do our biggest pre-sale of the day being screwed out of what they originally intended to see. Card subject to change, yeah, I'm all for that, but I don't like using that unless I absolutely have to. And there were a lot of talents that just decided they were no longer going to be a part of the event when word began to travel from whoever that, hey, you might not want to work for this guy.
We are all out of time on this edition of PWCI This Week. We'll have part 2 of our interview right back here next week. Until next time, the spin is making me dizzy. Happy Thanksgiving!